Scorpio and Venus and Scorpio. This person, you know, this is kind of a toxic lover, you know, but really more so if you want to look at it from a better perspective, this is a deep kind of lover. But it kind of can be, sad for these people, right? Because they look for like true depth, like, not just surface level shit in any kind of relationship. So it's hard for them to find that connection that they want. You know, typically these people are always, searching for that. They say themselves searching for a deeper connection, you know, whatever that means for that person. Mostly, sexual, sometimes not, um, but mostly that. Um, but in doing that, these people sometimes can be toxic. Willful people, we're gonna do what I want to do, because I know I can do it, and I can do it. You will like it and other things. They have a like way about them. They can, I don't want to sound fucked up for saying this, but they can kind of like manipulate the heart, in a way, to where you were like, as the other person, I can't, get by without being with this person. This person is, and for lack of better terms, is powerful. They know how to, they know what I like, and other things, but they use that as a means to, keep you around. But like, not all of them do that shit. Some people are, like I said, seeking connections. It's not always abusive with this person, but that's their way of showing love. They need that type of action taken, towards them. They like you submitting to them and doing what they like, you to do. And then, like, not just that, though, you sticking around too. That's the main point, because you can't just, fuck around with them and then leave, without, letting that be the thing, like, in the first place. Like, you can't just, play games with them and be like, oh, I'm gonna be here, and I like what you do. I'll always be here. Don't lie to them on some shit like that, because they call that betrayal, and they call that, a bitch. They call that, they'll hold a grudge on you for a long ass time, you know, and you don't want to do that in the heart chakra pool. You know, that can lead to, an early grave. It could lead to, sickness and other things. You gotta learn to like let go of that shit. This person, maybe they did betray you. Maybe you were looking for, depth with that person, but you gotta remember there's other people out here. But for them, it was like the investment and the time they put in. You know, that's time they won't get back. That's why this person is like, and it seems as they have hate in their hearts, you know, or they have jealousy or something of that magnitude, you know. But it's, just the way these people are. These people seek depth in relationships. You know, you shouldn't play games with somebody like this, is what I'm saying. If they're seeking depth and you're not that person, let them know from the jump. I'm not that deep. I'm not like that. Then it's not as much of a sting to them, and they're like, okay, I understand what it is. They'll be hurt a little bit, but they won't have that type of grudge or hate towards you, because at least you let them know what the fuck is going on, with you. And this person will attract that, but these people, they attract all people and shit. They have a mystique about them, right? But not all of them do, because this is a Venus sign after all, right? you know if you find yourself having grudges and shit like that, holding on to, what somebody might have done to you in the past, you gotta like just learn how to, just deal with it, and like, don't hate that person. If you hold on to that, you might become like that person you're, hating or whatever, and that ain't who you are. That ain't what you actually desire. You decide that deep connection, so keep looking for that, and you will find it. It might take a while, it might not take a while. It depends on the person, but you will find it. Because heart to heart pool does exist. Stay cool on the corner, or try to if you're this person.